Good evening and a very warm welcome to all the industry friends present here. I am pleased to host an informative panel discussion on sustainability and communication in times of uncertainty. They say the future of fashion is GLOCAL. This webinar will offer insights from over 10 years of defining sustainability criteria for the textile industry, and inspiration for communication during the crisis of consumption, and ideas on how to define and build your sustainability criteria. We have with us today Magdalena Schaffrin, CEO of Kaleidoscope Berlin. It's a creative and a strategic design consultancy bringing fashion and sustainability together. In 2009, she co-founded the Green Showroom, a trade show for sustainable high fashion, today known as Neonit. She now acts as the creative director of Neonit and is responsible for a renowned editorial fashion show run by Kaleidoscope during Berlin Fashion Week. With her we have Max Gilgenmann. He is the CEO of Kaleidoscope Berlin. In 2010, he started working as a consultant for sustainability in textile and fashion industry with a focus on Southeast Asian market. Since 2016, he is also the co-chairperson of the NGO Future Fashion Forward, coordinates the Global Fashion Revolution campaign in Germany. Additionally, Max also acts as the content director at Neonit and responsible for sustainability criteria and checks. Moderating them today, this panel is Layla Mueller. She is the project manager and consultant at Kaleidoscope Berlin. She founded her brand in 2017, focusing on sustainably produced accessories, while creating a fashion tech collection as a designer in residence at Electrocouture. Over to you, Layla.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. First and foremost, why do we speak about sustainability today? Yesterday, the news reached me that some residents in northern India say they can now finally, after 30 years, for the first time, see the snow-capped Himalayas, which are like 200 kilometers away from them. Seeing these pictures right now really had an impact on me. And from our host, Priyanka, I heard that all over India right now, people are making memes saying that they can see Paris and New York from their balcony because the air is so clean due to globally spread lockdowns. So there have been more and more insights into the positive effect on nature of these, well, more forced lockdowns on us. And as humanity is currently slowing down, trying to stay safe, voices become louder. How can we stay sustainable? And actually, what is sustainability? So I welcome you to our webinar, Sustainability and Communication in Times of Uncertainty. The future of fashion is GLOCAL. Our content today, we first want to concentrate 40 minutes on the moderated input from Magdalena and Max, asking the questions, what is sustainability and what criteria do we have for the textile industries? How can enterprises benefit from their sustainability actions? How to communicate during the coronavirus crisis, and how can you adopt or build a solid sustainability strategy now? After that, we have 20 minutes of Ask Us Anything Q&As, which we welcome you to ask any question during our webinar. We will collect all the questions and try to answer as many as possible at the end of our moderated input. And also you can contact us if there are any further questions or input. So just use the chat box for Q&As and ask any question you have in mind. So Priyanka already introduced us. I just want to say again, Kaleidoscope Berlin is a creative strategic consultancy. We focus on themes of sustainability and was co-founded by Magdalena Schaffrin and Max Gilgenmann. We're based in Berlin, and we're best known for the combination of strategic consulting and creative direction. We operate as advisors and concept developers for our clients from the fields of fashion and consumer goods, as well as public and governmental institutions. Additionally, we also provide mentorship services and create the implementation phases of projects and campaigns. Our focus is on using a clear language and aesthetic forms of expression, like the language of fashion, to make the complexities of sustainability questions accessible for a specific target audience around the world. We understand ourselves as a translator and networkers between different cultures and environments in an internationally interconnected world. And I would now ask the CEOs and co-founders of Kaleidoscope to briefly introduce themselves. We were already introduced, but maybe there's something else they would like to add. Magdalena, would you like to start?
Hi, and thank you for handing over to me. Thank you for Priyanka for inviting us today for the webinar, and thank you for all of you for joining us. I would like to keep it very short, and I think that Priyanka already very well introduced us. So I would like to actually start the conversation already on the topic if Max is not missing anything on his person.
No, also just a warm welcome to everybody, and thank you, Priyanka and the team of Messe Frankfurt in India to have us. It's an honor to be in this webinar today and be virtually in India, kind of. I also kind of dressed up a little bit for this occasion. So yeah, I hope we're going to have a good conversation, and I'm very much looking forward to the Q&A session at the end also, and I hope we can really keep this also interactive. So first we go into the content, and yeah, but please keep on asking questions. We're really going to try to answer them as much as possible.
Great. As these times are all about communication, put all your questions in the Q&A box. We're very excited to see what you have in mind. So let's go to our first question. What is sustainability, and what criteria do we have for the textile industries?
I would say, in general, sustainability is, of course, a very vast and big topic and has many, many aspects. We have noted down some of the key words you should see now on our presentation and your screen. But in general, we can talk about three main aspects that define sustainability in textiles from an industry point of view. At first, we're talking about ecological aspects, all the things which are putting the environment into account. Then we have like the big part of the social aspects throughout all the supply chains. And the third pillar of our understanding of sustainability is transparency. Because if you start talking about sustainability and if you start working about sustainable strategies, transparency is actually the first thing to do to gain more transparency on your supply chains. Even if we have a holistic understanding of sustainability, we are today focusing more on the supply chains. Of course, like consumption patterns and system changes and everything else around it, around the product circle, is of course also to take into account. But we will not focus on this part of the circle right now. And just to make clear, economical sustainability is of course the baseline, because if you are not economical sustainable, I mean, all sustainable efforts are, let's say it a bit more drastic, are probably useless. Because if you are bankrupt, then I mean, all the social projects or all the social efforts you have done, they don't do any good longer. Let's start talking about transparency. Maybe we start with this, because this is actually like the baseline for building a sustainable strategy, to really understand where your materials come from, where your raw materials come from, who are your suppliers, all of them in the whole supply chain. This is especially a hard topic to figure out for brands, because especially bigger brands are working with a lot of suppliers, and mostly they don't know, they don't have the transparency on their materials and on their workers. So to actually start, this is the starting point of everything, like the transparency. To work more towards fair trade, I would like to hand over to Max.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as Magdalena mentioned, transparency is the baseline of everything. Well, also in certain ways, diversity is very important baseline. Just wanted to highlight that briefly in the sense of diversified supply chains, but also in the sense of diversified human resources. So you can really gain from the different skill sets along the supply chains. Going into these wordings, I mean, fair trade, organic, this is two of the typically biggest words that have been driving sustainability discussions around the world. But we listed all kind of other buzzwords there also to highlight that really this is not what it's all and only about. But well, especially in India, being a country where the whole supply chain from raw material, especially cotton, is present until like the production of the final products and the market obviously itself also. These two words still, and the concepts behind this are still very important. So fair trade obviously is about the trading and to act fairly in there. Pretty easy if you really just look into the word. The tricky bit comes into the definitions. Where do you start with fair trade and how deep do you go into it? One of the important extra buzzwords around it is certainly living wages. So the idea that everybody in your supply chain earns enough money to sustain their livelihood with their family and put some money besides for education of their kids, etc. So this is a combination of fair trade and living wage, which is important to understand. We can't go into the total depths here, but maybe we have a little bit more time at the end. Organic is typically understood as certified organic. So in terms of cotton, for example, you need to, if you change from a normal cotton plantation into a certified organic plantation, it usually takes 2 or 3 years of conversion. I mean, converting it from conventional to organic, where you don't use any synthetic pesticides or fertilizers and so on, and you go to more natural approaches, which is obviously also benefiting the soil, the land, and the people. So it again also has a strong social component to it. But this can be done in massive scale, like in the US, in South America, you have extremely big organic cotton farms. You can do it in very small cooperative ways that are often connected with fair trade. So these two kind of come together a lot. And typically also you define that fair and ecologic, fair and organic kind of comes together. But organic is really not all of it. You have to go much deeper. You have to look very general into resource efficiency, which can be water efficiency. Be it in your dyeing facility or be it at the cotton field and use as little water as possible, and obviously recycle it, have cleaning facilities for it. It can be energy efficiency. You need to really be aware of where do you waste your energy streams, where does your energy come from, how can you be more efficient with that, which obviously also is very strong economic aspects. And then efficiency also around raw materials. Obviously, the more you kind of waste in your cutting rooms, the more you waste because you don't put your orders really according to the demand, then more money you lose. And at the same time, the more harm you do to the environment, and maybe the more you waste your human resources also. So yeah, this package, I would like for the next words to explain this concept from recycling to circularity, cradle to cradle, hand over again to Magdalena.
Thank you, Max. Actually, the whole part of recycling or upcycling, circularity, and coming to cradle belongs to the ecological aspects mostly, because recycling, it's probably a well-known concept of reusing materials, either post-consumer or pre-consumer waste, to recycle it into other products, usually. We are talking about upcycling. If we are using waste and putting it into products from higher value, this is like the meaning of upcycling. So we are putting more value into it from a waste point of view, then we are talking about upcycling. I find it a bit difficult to understand because even, I mean, up and down is a pretty linear system, and cycling, I mean, we are talking about a cycle, like a rounded system. So upcycling is kind of a pretty difficult topic, but yeah, this is like the the general understanding of it. It is a bit different to circularity, because circularity really means closing the loop, while recycling is not actually closing the loop. So you can recycle, for example, you can recycle PET bottles into like some fleece fabrics, but then the fleece fabrics gets probably not recycled any longer, or then ends up in like a recycling mill here in Western Europe, and then ending up like as a fill material in cars. So you are not like with the recycling process, you are actually not closing the loop. So this is like a much higher demand if we are talking about circularity, because it needs to be thought of the end of life of the product and the material from the beginning. So while designing a product for circularity, you already need to know where to reuse it after the first using phase. So for example, if you're closing the loop, and very little companies in the fashion industry have already managed to do this, but one of them are probably quite well known. It's called Mud Jeans. It's a Netherlands company, and they are closing the loop in like taking back their jeans, their jeans manufacturer, and then recycling the material into new jeans. So they are actually, while having the take-back system, they are able to recycle their own products into their own new products. So this is like the understanding of circularity. It doesn't always needs to be the same products while closing the loop. It can also, the material can also have like another life in another product, and then probably come back again. But it's just, which is very important to understand, that recycling is not already circularity. Circularity has a much higher demand on the way you're designing and using materials and mixing materials as well. An even higher level of circularity, I would describe the cradle-to-cradle concept. It is probably well known to you, for most of you, but I shortly describe the two systems in the cradle-to-cradle concept. The cradle-to-cradle concept means that you have either technical cycle or biological cycle. So if you are using organic materials, you might be able to compost them, but not in only the understanding of natural materials, like in fashion, it's not only cotton or linen or wool, but we also talk about all the coloring and all the finishing and everything. So designing a cradle-to-cradle product only from a material point of view is probably not that difficult. But what is really difficult is to develop the right colors and the right finishes and the right colors for printing, which are also then biodegradable and also be able to be composted if you are going into a natural cycle. If you are working with the cradle-to-cradle concept in a technical way, we are talking about technical recyclings. So this is probably more suitable for all non-organic fibers. So for example, we have, or we see now some efforts in the industry, like from Lansing or Renewcell or others, who are trying to find or to get to gather old worn clothing, secondhand clothing, and then put it into a process to gain more new fibers, like a new viscose fiber or tensile fiber or whatever. So this is also an understanding of a cradle-to-cradle. But what comes on top with the cradle-to-cradle, because what I've just now described is also only circularity, but cradle-to-cradle also have the health aspects. So if you are designing a product or like a material or a color or whatever, what industry ever you are working in, you always have to keep in mind the health of the people, not only working with the materials, but also the materials or like the ingredients you are using. So cradle-to-cradle is certifying certain chemicals for being listed as cradle to cradle, you are able to using. Some are not, because some of the chemicals are just unhealthy. And what is also implemented and is often forgot while talking about cradle to cradle is also in the certification, in the gold certification at least, is social aspects, are social aspects. So the cradle to cradle concept is actually a holistic one, which is not only focusing on closing the loop, but also using the right chemicals from the beginning, with the idea to only have like very healthy and good input in the beginning, to then put it into a circular system, to then get rid of all like the damaging chemicals in the industry.
Thank you, Magda. Max, would you briefly explain the next 3 points, and then I think we need to head to the next question, because there are a lot of aspects, as you all can see, to sustainability.
Yes, and I can see that there's a lively discussion in the chat and many questions. So I would like to give time for that also. So just to really be quick and give like a holistic idea of sustainability. So all these aspects are important, and sustainability is endless. It is as big as life itself and has all the complexities. So that's kind of one of the answers. But this is all aspects you can look into, and obviously you should look into them individually too, depending what is your business, what is your environment, and so on, your network of people, your target groups. And that's what leads me to consumption patterns. So obviously the way how people consume has an enormous impact on the industry, on our planet. And this is also part of sustainability. So this is changing. There's new consumption patterns arising in certain societies around the world. Some countries, also like India, I guess, or I'm pretty sure, and China, but also Bangladesh and so on, you can feel that there's coming more and more consume. So there's new opportunities, but also new opportunities to kind of really start already with new kind of approaches to consume, and things that are coming more and more strongly in for Germany, but also US, is different approaches to how to consume. Actually, we have stopped consuming a long time ago. It's more using already. I mean, consuming, the word consume implements that you would use something until the end. But this is rarely happening in our societies here. Mostly it's using them and then you kind of get rid of them. Either you kind of throw them away like too many people do, or you sell them, you share them, you give them away for charity and so on. And out of this, you can see that, for example, reselling platforms, second-hand platforms are rising strongly. The market is getting bigger and bigger. Some of them combine the aspect of second-hand with upcycling and repairing. So there's a lot more service-orientated business models in fashion. There's also rental services that are becoming bigger and bigger. Rent a Runway in the US was one of the early examples how you can really scale this up. Then alongside with this, obviously, comes system changes. So if you want to really be sustainable, you need to have different approaches, and this is something that is very complex, so I'm not going too deep into it, but you need to be aware. You can't just say, okay, I'm using organic cotton and I'm certifying it and then I'm sustainable. That's just a fraction of it. You really have to think around things and find new solutions. And one of them, which is really rising right now, especially with the crisis, with the coronavirus and the lockdown attached to it, actually mostly, is showing the world, I mean, most of the societies, that things can be different. Nobody had a few weeks ago could have imagined what is a normal everyday life at the moment. And this is bringing many people to think, okay, how does this combine a globalized world with also fragility at many points? So now there's endless problems in the supply chains. Where do I get my raw materials from? Who's still my customers? Who's still buying? And what are they buying? Are people only buying masks now, or PPE, like protective clothing, etc. I think in our societies now at the moment, there's lots more sport wear, yoga wear being sold through online channels. Obviously, all the offline channels are totally shut down at the moment. So the question of what does the local aspect in this globalization is becoming so much stronger. And this will, from our point of view, lead to a strong discussion towards globalization. So the globalization obviously will continue. This is not unstoppable, no question. But the element of what is the local, the regional structures, that will become much, much more strong in the next few weeks and months and probably years to come, since also it is predicted that the effect of the coronavirus is still going to take on for 2 or 3 years in different ways. Yeah, so that's on what is sustainability.
Thank you, Max. So let's head over to the big question: how can enterprises benefit from their sustainability action? I think you already mentioned a few aspects, but maybe we have the chance to briefly get to your points of these benefits.
Of course, I mean, this is our understanding, and this is also from our experience what we see, that enterprises and companies who are working more or having a sustainability strategy and working in or with sustainable guidelines in their economies, they are more anti-fragile to these kind of crises we are just facing now. I mean, the last crisis was the finance crisis in 2008. And some of them were getting out of these crises more stronger than they got in before, because this is like something we just mentioned in the beginning very briefly. But these crises have also a chance because people are forced to now stay at home and get more time to rethink their like ways of thinking, ways of working, what they are like aiming to or whatnot. So like sustainable thoughts or like values, they're like arising in these times, usually when people really start rethinking their way of life and way of working. So what we mean with anti-fragility, and I start with that, is a concept which means that you are not only building up resilience in a crisis or towards more coming crises, and there will be more in the future, of course, that's what we know. We don't know how they are going to look like, but we can take out some learnings from this one. But to really build a structure and like a way of thinking, I would say, a way of living somehow to make it even bigger, with more flexibility, to try to open up your mind, to find new ways of doing business, to survive with your business, to maybe reach other customers, to also maybe get a stronger focus on what you're good in, and then really to promote what you're good in, to be stronger in the promotion and also in the selling then of these kind of products, and really to especially not building like fragile big structures which are easily breaking down if there's like some earthquakes like they are coming right now into the economic world. So I guess that most of the smaller companies, they probably will survive this crisis more easily because they have it, for them it is easier to switch to another business, or like another shade of the business, or switch the focus a bit. And this could also be like more bringing in more sustainability in your organization. Because with sustainability comes also like a transparent supply chain, as we have already mentioned, and other partnerships with your suppliers. So everyone in the fashion and textile industry is dependent on suppliers, and or like in any products manufacturing industry, actually. It's not only in the fashion and textile industry. So having better relationships with your companies and having shared values with them also throughout your supply chains is like a way of managing your risks. Because if you have a trustful relationship with your suppliers and with the companies you're doing business with, your business partners, you are much stronger to cope these kind of crises together. And this also comes with like long-term partnerships, because building trust is something you do over time. So if you are like acting like the fast fashion companies, like placing orders like in seconds and switching suppliers in seconds or minutes on any like platforms, you are not able to really like build a relationship. So this is like why these kind of companies are hit much worse by a crisis like this, when, for example, like companies or like factories in China closed. They had really big problems to get their orders done. I mean, they are not able to. So, but if you have a relationship with your suppliers and business partners, it's much easier to cope with these and to figure out a common strategy to cope with these kind of crises.
Yeah, but I think really it's not just about the crises. I mean, the stability is a very general benefit you get out of sustainability, especially since sustainability, if you take it serious, it will be part of your whole organization. So your whole workforce will be involved. Your management obviously will be heavily involved. And this does create a different mindset. And this does make everybody involved a bit more sensible for all kind of details that otherwise get lost in the everyday rush. And this makes you stronger and less fragile for sure. Other clear benefits is you would act way more demand driven in your production. This is, for example, even this big, really big company Inditex with the brand Zara and a few more brands, they can show already they have been gaining and winning the place also against H&M a lot and strongly around the last couple of years, because they had a way more demand-driven production. I don't know how much you heard about it, but H&M has built up a stock of clothes, of fashion, that is worth $4 billion, I think. And Zara never had this. They have a very, very demand-driven production system with a very, very good communication system between the stores, online and offline. They always know what's going on, and then they produce the things that actually are being bought. And they're not trying to push things in the market. They let the market pull more. So obviously they still also push a lot. They will also have to adopt more in the next couple of years. They have published a big sustainability plan, as you might have seen, but they are already quite far ahead in terms of the demand-driven production. You can also see that higher margins are part of a more sustainable approach usually, and that is even if you look at big online retailers, we've been talking with them, like in Germany, Zalando is very big. I guess you know ASOS from UK, or also in Germany, the Otto Group is one of the biggest players in Europe. For them, also they see it's better for them to sell less products with a higher margin, because you have less attachment to each of the products. It's easier for them if they only send one parcel with 3 products to a customer and have less risk of getting other things back, because the logistic costs are strong, the cost for stock, etc., and are pretty high. So they also prefer and try to get more into higher margin products. So this demand is being driven, and this demand is also going to be driven through all these concepts of rental and reselling, because if you want to tap into reselling a product, then you need a higher quality product. If it's low quality, you have no chance to resell it or to rent it out a few times, which is then your business model. So all these things kind of are coming up, and this is already a direct benefit you can create through a sustainable strategy. Then obviously you through the things that Magdalena already explained, risk management, is a very, very strong aspect. It's just, you know your supply chain better. You know where problems can occur. You can react quicker. You have much more of an idea. If something happens, you know better where to interact, who's the person responsible, etc. And everybody is more sensible. So yeah, this is just something that automatically arises with every company that we have seen that got into sustainable strategies. Obviously, also your reputation is there protected, and well, the last bit, the customers will also thank it to you, I think.
Thank you so much. We can see that there's really a depth into the topic of sustainability. What's really important now is how can companies handle the current situation in their communication. So with solidarity, that's being super important through the COVID-19 crisis, and customers being very open and especially sensitive for messages around solidarity, sustainability, responsibility, and consciousness. How to communicate during the coronavirus crisis?
Yeah, I mean, again, we got the best numbers at the moment from Germany, which I think are the most reliable from our personal perspective. At the moment, it seems the German retail is not selling around 10 million pieces of fashion per day. I mean, this includes shoes and everything. So that's a huge number. And even online broke down for at least a third. So the situation is very, very difficult. And if the market is uncertain, then you as a brand, or also a supplier that is working with brands, you have to be as clear as possible for yourself. This is how you can support your network, your peers, by being clear in the time of unclarity. So yeah, this is super important. We have seen in like, especially social media communication, which obviously is very important right now, that it is very helpful if you concentrate on the basic qualities of what you're doing, your service, your product. You should address your target group more personal than ever. So like really show your own face, show the face of your teams. This is definitely helpful to create a more emotional bond. Also, you should try to also take back your sales advertising a bit, and be more like the listener, to kind of also offer your own services and platform to help in whatever way. Ask what is the concerns of your customers and try to help. And sometimes just talking about it is already a big help. Maybe you can't offer them whatever really concrete help, but just talking about things, sharing is caring in that sense. It can help a lot. And so yeah, you definitely should be less aggressive in your sales marketing language, and be a bit more humble. And also, again, part of this GLOCAL aspect, obviously you should also really check out what is your local environment, where your factory is, where your shops are, and try to support locally as much as possible. So yeah, this is important, and stay sensible. Obviously, in a way, we're all in the same boat. We have this crisis worldwide, but still there's huge gaps in how our social situations are. Social security in Germany, for example, is pretty good. In India, you have millions of people that have no security net. And so like you have a whole different situation, how to deal with things. And you need to show this sensibility on acknowledging the differences, even though we all fight the same kind of big enemy there. We have very different means on how to deal with it. And that's also good to keep in mind.
Well, Layla, you said it in the beginning, but the solidarity is rising very much. And we actually got to know about a campaign in the fair fashion scene from some of our exhibitors with Neonit, where they are going together with their retailers for a fair fashion solidarity campaign to ask the retailers not to sell their products for reduced price. So not put every item into a big sale after the crisis, but try to resell the products to the like a worthy price, let's say. So this is something which is possible if you have a relationship with your business partners. So where we are getting into like more solidaric action. What we have done and what we'd like to show you, because we are a little bit proud of this, we have participated in a call from the United Nations to face the Corona crisis. It's a call from the United Nations to all the creatives in the world. It's actually still open. So if any one of you is interested or knows somebody who might be interested to participate, it is possible to put something in until the 14th of April. So we have started with our communication with like a fashion's notes to self, because we as working in a fair fashion scene, so with sustainability and fair trade and all these values, we thought that we are also a voice in the fashion industry, in the whole fashion industry. So that's why we thought we can formulate some of the claims we would like to show you now. And the fashion's note to self, number one would be, solidarity looks good on you. So this is something we also like you to spread if you like it. So this is actually will be open to download and to just spread it over social media. The fashion note to self number two would be more values and less bling bling, to kind of like try to get people to rethink a bit on their values. The fashion's note to self number three would be transform the systems, which is of course a pretty big note if you're rethinking in a systemic level. So this is like a topic which will like guide us and we will have this topic like for the next couple of years. The fashion's note to self number four will be like make trade fair. This is something we are working for a long time, but also other organizations like World Fair Trade Organization since more than 40 years. So this is still very actual. The fashion's note to be the change is now, which is like, of course, putting on the current situation. But anyway, a lot of changes are going on in the fashion industry. So as we have actually worked with the claim for Neonit, the change of fashion is now, we were a bit unsecure in the beginning how to deal with it now with this situation where the change is like coming in so vastly. So we thought, but then gained also like the self-understanding, like, no, it's right, the change is now, it's a lot of changes which are probably not very positive for a lot of companies. But anyway, there will be some light at the end of the tunnel, and the changes towards more sustainability, but also the digitalization, which is like coming in the industry, is of course going on, even if we have a Corona crisis or not. So this is why this is like more than actual right now to say like the changes now. So this would be like our.
I mean, I think what this is also an example how we think like, okay, communication needs to be on point, extra on point right now. So all these claims obviously have a certain purpose. So this is not to sell products at the moment. This is to kind of sell the change. But it does represent like be very on point, be very simple in your communication. And this is kind of why we wanted to show this and share this with you, since it's one of our latest pieces of visual work that we've done.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. As we only have 10 minutes left to the webinar, I would like to jump the next slide, which is sustainability strategies now. In this case, if you have any particular questions or demands, I would suggest that you email us for any questions for strategic advice, as I would like to jump to the Ask Us Anything now, to give you the chance to jump on the questions. So Priyanka, which questions do we have from the audience concerning the topics that we listed so far?
Yes, Magdalena, we have a lot of questions right now. I would like to start with maybe Udit soon. He wants to know, can you please provide more details on the United Nations programs? They are a sustainable brand and they would like to participate in it.
Okay, cool. Let me share the link to the call into our chat, maybe. I try to make it now, right now. That's probably very helpful. Don't you think so?
Yes. Thank
and
you,
otherwise,
Magdalena.
they're very welcome to contact us on LinkedIn or via email or Instagram, and we can share the link for sure. It's an open call, but it's there in the chat. You can see it now.
This question has been asked by a couple of people in the chat group. One is Vikram, Aditi. They want to know the difference between upcycling and recycling. So, for example,
yeah. This is actually I tried to explain it again and very shortly. So upcycling means to reuse a material from a product, already used product, or like cutting waste, like a waste product, to a product you can sell for a higher value. This is like why the up is coming into the cycle. So you actually, like, for example, you have cutting waste and you give it to a designer, for example, an upcycling designer, and this designer makes shirts out of it, or purses, or like handbags or something like this. So the cutting waste would usually go into like, waste. But if you put it into a design process through a designer, the designer can like make a product from higher value and then sell it for a higher price. This is like the understanding of upcycling.
So Magdalena, on the same lines, on the same lines, Aditi wants to know, in the name of upcycled, organic, recycled, some businesses have widened their profit margins. That has led to sustainable fashion only to rich people. Is it becoming a trend to wear sustainable clothes, but we have to make this as a fashion statement or rather than a trend?
I would like to kind of maybe jump into that briefly. I mean, yes, this is a very known problem, that a lot of products that are more sustainable are also more expensive and are therefore not so readily available for the mainstream. The baseline of it is, first of all, at the beginning, it is costing you more to go into sustainability because you have to change things. You have to invest in it. There's hardly any way around that. That is part of the truth. But we can see that very clearly, especially in the last 2-3 years, that the same rules that apply to any economy is, if you scale things up, you get better prices. And there is a few very good examples out there now already where companies have completely switched to only using organic cotton and have changed their processes in dyeing and so on, where they have the same price level now and can sell at a fair mid-level pricing. Or there have been new materials, for example, bio-based synthetics, which are even cradle-to-cradle certified and cheaper at the end of the day than the original virgin polyester, because they've not changed the raw material only, but they've changed all the processes along. But again, this also was, for this example, it was a company called Ocean Safe, and they needed like a few years to implement this. But first of all, scaling the numbers means you can reach lower prices. But going into brands like H&M or Primark with t-shirts, prices at the retail level as low as 2-3 euros, for now this will be difficult to reach, and you can only reach that in scaling up the numbers. But this also does work. Still, the question is that really the right approach? Do you need to go this super low, or can you establish something somewhere in between? Because again, maybe this market of super low pricing will also find an end. For probably not within the next 10 years, but maybe within 5 to 10 years, there will be strong changes where you can see that high quality products get a much bigger market share again, because you can do so many more things about it. Again, as I mentioned before, because you can rent them a couple of times, you can resell them all the time, and all these kind of business models are skyrocketing, will be skyrocketing in the next few years through digitalization, because the processes behind were super complicated, or still complicated. But once you have set them up in a digital environment, you can multiply them and you can scale them in a whole different way. And this is happening. And I'm sure the next 5 years will show quite a strong change in the market for these things, and then also change the numbers and the prices.
There is one participant who wants to know how can he build a strong awareness campaign before launching our sustainable. They have an organic t-shirt brand and wanted to learn the back-end system of successful sustainable brands. How and from where can he learn this?
This probably requires a bit longer time than just a few minutes in this
Maybe we could
situation.
take this offline. I will pass on this question to you and we could take this offline.
Yeah, that's probably better. Yeah.
But basically they can ask us. So
yeah. Salil wants to know, in the new paradigm, what will be the concept of sustainability after COVID-19 in the textile landscape?
I don't think that the concept of sustainability will be changed very much because it's very like baseline concept of like ecological aspects, social aspects, and transparency. These are the pillars, and they will stay the pillars. Probably a health aspect comes to it, or will be more important, but more considering all the people working in the supply chains. Not for the clothes themselves, I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, in general, I think this crisis will have the effect on a lot of people, on consumers especially, to more focus on, even more focus on sustainability. We have seen a big rise of the topic in the last year, especially. I mean, this is like the politics are going in, especially in Germany. We have the Textilbündnis, some others like in France, bigger groups like caring groups, LVMH, they are starting communicating very loudly about their sustainability strategies. I mean, bigger companies, also fast fashion companies, and this is what I wanted to add also to Max's speech before. We could see like a development in like smaller brands, like mid-level prices, but also like a movement in a very, very cheap, fast fashion sector, like Lidl and Aldi, like the supermarkets, like a cheap supermarkets in Germany. Where they also sell textiles. So they have also started to sell organic products and so on. So it is interesting to see that this sustainability movement is rooted in like a small, mid-sized, mid-level price brands, but also in the very cheap level.
Okay. So the next question comes from Rishit. This is for the denim industry. In denim recycling, indigo is the main problem in respinning it. Do you know anybody or any brand how they have overcome this problem?
I think it's a brand that Magdalena mentioned. They are one of the leaders in recycling of denim. They're called Madreens from the Netherlands. We can also, I mean, yeah, Magdalena maybe can put in the name. It's in the chat now.
I've just put it in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, besides that, there's plenty of approaches, but yeah, it is one of the challenges for sure. But I guess, I mean, if you look at the big companies like Candiani and ISCO and so on, they are providing solutions now step by step, and this will certainly also trickle down like the supply chains.
The next question from Yukta: with Industry 4.0, which kind of emerging technology is the most sustainable in the supply chain management in the industry?
Okay.
I didn't really get it. Can you just
I will say it again. Sorry. With Industry 4.0 coming in, which kind of technology is emerging and is more sustainable in the supply chain management of the industry?
I don't know right now. Honestly, I can't really answer this question on point. I think you would need to do a bit more research to really honest and give you a precise and a good answer to it. I don't know if you, Max, have any idea right now, but I would need to look further into this to really, I can't really like throw you an answer right now, which is like, well, thought through.
I still didn't fully get the question, but yeah,
I will
maybe,
send it to you offline. Yeah, I will send it to you offline.
please.
There are a couple of people who wanted to understand cradle to cradle concept again. If you could explain it once again.
Cradle to cradle?
The cradle to cradle concept. Yes. I mean, the cradle to cradle concept based on two circles. It's like a technical circle and a biological circle. So it depends very much on what material you are talking about. If a material can be recycled in a technical or in an organic way. The specialty of the cradle to cradle concept is that you are already choosing very carefully the ingredients of your materials, and you should already know how to recycle them. So starting with the cradle to cradle concept, you need to already think in the design process what you are using and how you take it back and how you can recycle it.
Can I just to create a picture which is being used by the founders of Cradle to Cradle also, or the people who invented it. If you think about a tree and the nature as a system, so the tree's leaves, if they fall down, they become already nutrition for the tree again to kind of prosper again next year. So maybe this picture helps. I mean, that's the baseline. Obviously, you need to make sure that the leaves are not toxic for yourself and so on. So that's what Magdalena means with all the input. But the baseline is that you always also, you keep it in a circle and you make sure that from the beginning, the system is designed so well that it always can keep on circulating. And the tree only is the picture maybe for the organic side. But then there would be the technical cycle where you can also do this with, for example, polyester and so on. But you have to make sure that the polyester doesn't include any chemicals that could at any kind of moment in the processes are harmful for the environment, for workers, etc., etc.
Interesting. On the same line, Tanmay wants to know about the industrial chemicals used in textiles. And with Germany being the headquarter of BASF, largest chemical manufacturer in the world, could you throw some light on the upcoming trends in replacing hazardous chemicals with bio-green chemical substitutes in the textile processing across the globe?
Well, it's a big one. I mean, for sure, it is happening. I mean, you can see obviously like the European REACH norm was a big change already in a certain direction. But this is a slow process after all. I mean, you have to see this is massive industries and very price sensitive also. So for sure, the same thing applies that we said before. Only if we scale the production up, we can get to kind of a good price level of more sustainable chemicals. But yeah, for sure, in the laboratories, they are working very hard on it. But it's a bit similar to maybe even medical products and so on. They take a lot of time until they really reach the market. Luckily, not as long time as medicals, but still, it's complicated. But yeah, we would definitely expect that, again, it's always in the range of next 5 to 10 years that there will be quite dramatic changes. And that if you kind of apply this correctly for your organization and you test them out, then you will be in a very good position to become one of kind of the future market leaders, because there is so much change processes going on. Yeah.
I think also that industry will follow politics, and circularity is very much circularity is a very big topic for the European Union right now. So all the calls they're supporting companies, there are around circularity, and there will be coming new regular regulations on hazardous chemicals to the EU in the future, in the quite near future.
Yeah, I mean, there's a circularity strategy and a Green New Deal for European Union. This will be pushed in the next 2-3 years. Probably it will be pushed harder now through the Corona crisis because it has showed so many problems. So yeah, we can expect from Europe for sure to make this a stronger legislation.
And we take the last question for today. This is about herbal textiles. Herbal textiles are very sustainable, but the market for such textiles is yet to be tapped. Also, these textiles don't hold the quality that normal textiles do. What are your views on this?
What kind of textiles?
Herbal textiles.
So kind of also herbal side,
yeah.
I guess. I guess this is also Ayurvedic. I believe it's gonna stay a niche, to be honest. This thing is, which can be a bigger and a more sustainable niche, but the thing is, it is a very, very demanding process. You need to pay a lot of attention to details. You need very certain ingredients. So the scalability is more limited from my point of view. So if you are into that, I would always advise to look at your niche, which is definitely existing, and you can do a good business there. But I would not expect this to become a major trend.
No, I think we should never forget that we are still talking about fashion. And fashion consumers, they're consuming at the first hand from style. So if you are like we are consuming something, we are choosing a piece of clothing because we like it, and everyone does actually, and it suits me or like the person. And then if I like it and the price is right, then it's probably something I will buy. And if it comes something as a plus and sustainability aspects are considered as a plus, then it's probably even better. And people are also telling that they are paying a bit more or like a higher price for sustainable clothing. But like coming from another point of view, like from like a Ayurvedic perspective, I think you need to have a very special interest in this specifically to only then decide to wear this kind of clothing. But a normal fashion consumer, they don't care in the first hand.
Okay, so the last question for both of you. I mean, your personal comments and your personal, comments on this. When do you think the fashion industry or the garment industry will revive after this coronavirus setback?
That's a big question. It's very interesting to see how the industry will be changed. I mean, I don't think that it will come back to the normal industry as we have known it before the crisis. I don't think so, no. I think it will look different.
Yeah, but I mean, to the question itself, I believe globally, it's gonna take at least like half a year to come a bit more back to normal. But the impact will be stronger and more long term. I mean, we can see a shift to more online. We can shift also to more local consumerism and so on. So it's impossible to really answer this right now. But I would expect to have an impact for a long time now. But it will be kind of getting smaller and smaller, because obviously everybody also adapts. I mean, this is one of the most exciting things about us humans. We can adapt a lot and quite quickly in moments of crisis. And if you see already what kind of change has happened, how many companies created new ideas, how to deal with things online, virtually, like us here right now, and how good the conversation is. I mean, these questions, the chat was crazy in the last hour. I think we don't need to worry too much about where this business is going. We can really look into the opportunities that are coming out of it. And obviously you can see, I mean, globally, for example, loungewear and like yoga wear and so on is trending a lot. Obviously masks are trending, protective wear is trending. So these are things also where you have to adapt, and that sense the fashion industry has the benefit to adapt quickly, because we are not car makers with very complicated products. At the end of the day, we can adapt the styles quite quickly of what we do. And in that sense, yeah, be be sensible and be open-minded at the moment to see what is the opportunities in the market and how you can also balance your own kind of needs with what your community around you and your network needs, and create like mutual benefits.
Perfect. Thank you, Magdalena. Thank you, Max. It was fantastic, quite insightful, and wishing you a lot of good health and stay safe, and see you again.
The same to you.
Yeah, and let's all pray that this too shall pass soon now.
Yes, we all hope that.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. So are we going out here?